Question 9 asks us about both passages. They're saying both passages were primarily written in order to answer which one of the following questions. Okay, so let's see if both passages can answer or was written to answer A, which says, what evolutionary advantage did larger brain size confer on early hominids? No, definitely not, right? They're talking about music. I mean, the larger brain size is sort of mentioned offhand. But I mean, can you try to answer this question just knowing what you know in A? Well, all I know is, I guess, the ability to produce language. Right? I'm sure that can't be the only benefit. I'm sure there are plenty of other benefits. So, see, a passage to try to answer A would look very, very different from passage A or B. B says, why do human mothers and infants engage in bonding behaviors composed of musical elements? Actually, we don't really know, or at least A doesn't talk about that at all. A certainly doesn't try to answer this question. C says, what are the evolutionary origins of the human ability to make music? Yeah, there you go. That's pretty good. C answers what it rode on the coattails of language. That's the evolutionary origins, right? See, because they talk about language and music using the same part of the brain and whatnot. And passage B talks about the mother-infant bond that's responsible for evolutionary origins of music. D says, do human abilities to make music and to use language depend on the same neurological systems? Passage A answers yes, but passage B doesn't talk about language at all. E says, why are most people more adept at using language than they are making music? Neither, I don't think. Maybe A talks about it a little bit, but B certainly does not make any comparison between language and music. So at the very least, you can say B doesn't answer this question. Question 10 just says each of the two passages mention the relation of music to what? The passage has to mention the relation of music to what. So this is a very good question for you if you have a good memory. If not, it might be kind of tough because you have to keep looking back, right? So both passages have to mention, actually state it. But the bond between humans, I think I want to cross this out because I remember that was just B, mother and infant bond. I don't think A talked about anything about music being bonding. Human emotion is something I definitely remember them talking about right here. Communicate emotions, and for this, of course, a lot of it was emotion, emotional bond between mother and child. So there I feel pretty safe choosing B. C is a really tough answer choice to get rid of. It's very tricky. It says neurological research, the relation of neurological research to music. It's not right. Answer choice, or rather passage A does mention this. It says brain imaging studies neurological research that study music. Right, so this is sort of very explicitly mentioned for A, but for B it's not, and it's kind of tricky because I get the sense that it is mentioned, but then I go back and look at it carefully because I was debating between answer choices B and C, and so I go back to this passage and I remember it's here. And then I realized what they're actually studying is using face-to-face mother-infant interactions filmed at 24 frames per second. Researchers shown that blah 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 blah. Such episodes last from half second. So you remember the whole time we're reading this, well, what does this have to do with music? That was the question we were asking because it actually doesn't, right? Because what they're doing is they realize that they're composed of musical elements. Oh, musical elements, not music, because they're excluding lullabies. It's not mother saying lullabies to the infant. It's just mother talking or cooing to the infant, or the infant talking, or I guess making noises back to the mother. So there's variation in pitch, rhythm, timbre, volume, tempo. Yeah, but not music. Musical elements. There are musical elements in language. There are musical elements in sound generally. So that's the tricky part about this answer choice, and C is not right because of that. But yeah, it's just very tough. Like I think probably the way to go is just to be very certain that B is right, which B does seem very strongly supported here. They do mention it. D says increasing helplessness of hominid infants, but I suppose B definitely mentions that, but A doesn't really talk about that at all. Use the tools to produce sounds. I think A talks about the tools to produce sounds, but B doesn't talk about that at all. Question 11 asks, it can be inferred that the author of two passages most likely disagree over whether. Well, okay, can you anticipate this? Because I think we have a good sense of what the two authors disagree over. Author A thinks that music evolved on the coattails of language, whereas author B proposes a different hypothesis for how music evolved, having to do with emotional bond between mother and child. So they disagree over the increase in hominid brain size necessitated at earlier birth. I don't even think A talks about that, or maybe if it does, I don't think brain size increase actually, but necessitated earlier birth, that I'm not so sure about. But anyway, I don't think they would disagree over this. So at most, I think at worst they agree, and probably realistically, we just don't know about A's position on this question. Next answer says fewer differences than similarities exist between neurological processing, music, and language. But A says that, but B doesn't. Again, B just does not talk about language. So many of these answer choices have been eliminated because B does not talk about language. C says brain size increased rapidly over the course of. Yeah, I mean they both agree on this. The capacity to produce music has great adaptive value to humans. There you go. A says it doesn't. A says it has no value, where's this? Little adaptive value. Music, little adaptive value. So likely development coattail. And then, of course, the whole passage B, all of passage B is spent trying to persuade us that there is a lot of adaptive value between mother and child, emotional bond, so on and so forth. Mother-infant bonding involves temporally pattern. Okay, whatever. A does not talk about this. A doesn't mention mother-infants at all. So they can't disagree. This is like a logical reasoning agree-disagree question. If one of the authors doesn't take a position, just simply remains silent on an issue, you cannot, no matter what you say, you cannot disagree with that person. Question 12 now asks us what the authors most likely agree to which one of the following questions. So 11 was what the authors disagree on. 12 is what do they agree on. So this one, I don't know. I have, I suppose, less of a sense of being able to anticipate because the disagreement seemed pretty obvious. I was keeping track of that as we were reading. But the agreement, I don't know, maybe they could agree on a lot of stuff. Specifically, they're asking about musical capacity. So does it, referring to musical capacity, does the musical capacity manifest itself in some form in early infancy? I don't know. Passage A doesn't talk about early infancy, whether babies have some early form of music. So just like with question 11, if one author doesn't take a position on it, then there's no way you can disagree with him, nor can you agree with him. So A is gone. B says, does musical capacity affect the strength of mother-infant bond? Again, see, like this, there's just questions that B is very concerned with answering. A does not answer these questions. C says, is the musical capacity at least partly a result of evolutionary increase in brain size? And yeah, there you go. Right. This is said. See right here, involve brain size, and then passage B definitely talks about that too somewhere. Right here, this whole thing about the brain size and stuff. So I think their answer would be both yes for both authors would be yes for this question. D says, did musical capacity evolution spur development of new neurological systems? That's not. Nobody said that. Even for A, I know you might be thinking A might say agree with this, or say yes, but we can't say that. The reason is because all A says is that music and language are processed in the same part of the neurological system. I don't know if it's because, right? I don't know that system developed as a result of music. Maybe music developed as a result of the system being there. Who knows, right? So you can't answer that. E says, why does musical capacity vary so greatly among different individuals? And neither author answers that. Why are some people awesome piano players and some people, terrible singers or whatever? We don't know. 13 asks, which one of the following principles underlies the argument in both passages? So a principle that sort of is pinned down beneath the arguments, meaning that the arguments are assuming this, right? A principle that underlies the argument means it's a statement that the argument assumes. So let's see if so the analog here will be for logical reasoning will be, I think necessary assumption questions are very similar to this. A says, investigations of evolutionary origin of human behavior must take into account behavior of non-human animals. No, what? No. Neither of them talk about non-human animals. All human capacities can be explained in terms of evolutionary advantages they offer. This is a very, very attractive answer choice, but it's not right because the danger here, I put a little tilde. I didn't cross it out right away. I put a little tilde because it's circled all. And I'm thinking to myself, I think this is way too strong of an assumption. If they said some human capacities can be explained in terms of evolutionary advantages they offer, then I would definitely choose B. But I don't think either author needs to presume, or neither author presumes that all human capacity can be explained. They're only talking about music and language after all. I mean, A is talking about music and language, B is only talking about music. So see, like, why would they presume that all human capacity can be explained? Why can't there be some human capacity that can't be explained? I don't think that's a print. See, so that's why I was very hesitant about B. But again, I was more sure that A was wrong than I was B was wrong. But so I did this. C says the fact that a single neurological system underlies two different capacities. That's what A talks about. The single neurological system. What are the two different capacities? Language and music is evidence that those capacities evolve concurrently. But like, B just doesn't talk about that. I don't want to discuss A because it gets a little iffy, but for B, author B certainly doesn't talk about language at all, so this is definitely not an assumption author B makes. D says the discovery of neurological basis of human behavior constitutes the discovery of the essence of that behavior. Again, B doesn't talk about this. That's like this part over here. They're saying the discovery of the neurological basis. So once we discover what part of the brain is responsible for this particular behavior, that discovery constitutes the discovery of the essence of that behavior. I have no idea what this means. So basically, there's nothing to the behavior. The essence of music is just the brain neurons firing or something, right? That's what a weird answer choice. E says the behavior of modern day humans can provide legitimate evidence concerning the evolutionary origin of human abilities. Yeah, that's right, because they both study humans. They both better presume that modern day humans do count as legitimate evidence concerning the origins of human ability, which probably happened tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years ago, because both passages cite studies. Studies are done on modern humans, right? So study right here, and this passage cites studies over here. So if they're citing studies, that means they definitely believe that these studies, which are done on modern humans, provide legitimate evidence concerning evolutionary origins of human ability. So at this point, I'm like seeing how much I like E makes me very certain that B is not right. And in fact, it is because of this that B is not right. Question 14 is asking which one of the following most accurately characterizes a relationship between the two passages. So how are passages A and B related to each other? A says passage A and passage B use different evidence. Well, they certainly use different evidence. They cite different studies, brain imaging study and this like mother-child study. So that's a check. They definitely use different evidence to draw divergent conclusions. Check. Yeah, this seems really good. The divergent conclusions that conclusion here. When scientists draw conclusions, they mean hypothesis. That's their hypothesis. So the hypothesis here is that music developed on the coattails of language, whereas for author B, the divergent conclusion is that music had evolutionary advantage, and that's why it developed. So very good answer choice. B says A poses questions that B attempts to answer. No. I mean, if anything, this is the question that A posed. The music and language originate separately together, and B doesn't answer that. B doesn't talk about language at all. C says A proposes hypothesis, which it does, and let's see, B attempts to substantiate the hypothesis. No. B does not like A's hypothesis. B is proposing a divergent hypothesis. So B is not helping to substantiate A's hypothesis with its own evidence. Nope. D says A proposes expresses a stronger commitment to its hypothesis, and B doesn't. I don't think so. I think both authors are fairly committed to their hypothesis. This guy's hypothesis is this, and then this guy's hypothesis is this. I don't like what evidence do we have that B is like not as committed to his hypothesis as A is? Passage A and passage B use different evidence, to support the same conclusion. No, wrong. So there you go. A is correct.